We pretty much know the shape of the Vikings free agency, so how does that change their draft strategy? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Vikings fans? Welcome in to 4-0 Friday on the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. We didn't do this last week. Some things were going on. We had pressing matters. So you and I were both a little busy last week, but good to have you back, Tyler. Welcome back to the show. And 4-0 Friday is a draft thing, first and foremost. And every Friday from here on out, the draft will become more and more in focus, and free agency will become less and less in focus. So let's start that process by asking the question, how has free agency changed the draft? In particular, the draft needs for the Vikings.
I think it's changed it completely. Yeah, I would make the argument the Vikings don't have a single dire need on this roster right now, and that's the way.
I don't know if I can get there with you.
I
don't know if I can get there with you with like projected starters Theo Jackson and Mekhi Blackmon with no competition right now, unless you're like real high on Jeff Okudah. Like I still think they need, and like I'm okay with one of those guys being like the projected third dude in the group, but I can't do both.
Well, I think Isaiah Rodgers is a penciled in starter at this point, and if you don't want Isaiah Rodgers as a penciled in starter, completely understand. That's kind of the vibe I
think
I
so.
have.
I don't think, because he's so outside, I don't think he's competing with Mekhi Blackmon.
Yeah.
But like Mekhi Blackmon coming off the ACL last year, I wanted him to compete, and then he got hurt. Nothing has changed. I still want him to have to compete with somebody.
I think from a draft perspective, I still don't think it's a dire need. I think it's more of a need on an overall scale where you want one more dude to feel really comfortable about that room if you had to go in with that roster in week one. I don't think a rookie in round 1, 2, or 3 really changes that element. Personally, I think the idea of what Jeff Okudah could be could change that element, but it's also Jeff Okudah. He's had 5 years and it has not worked in the NFL. Like, this is where a guy like a Shaq Griffin would come into play. If he were to come back, I think you'd feel really comfortable about this room. But I don't think it necessarily changes the draft formula for this year. I don't like that. And I think that's where you and I might philosophically differ. This room, I think, is fine to compete with if they all stay healthy. And let's be real, they probably won't. So you want to add another body, but I don't think that mandates that you have to take that guy in round 1. I personally think Theo Jackson's a starting caliber player, which is why I'm more comfortable there.
I think see it more. I get you. I've like, we've seen some splashes, but I want to see that to believe it. But I think he's for sure earned a chance. I don't know if he's earned a chance without somebody else to compete with.
I think that's a fair argument. I also don't think either of those arguments that you've presented tell us that we have to take secondary with our first pick. And I would like to have more depth, but I do think it opens up where, hey, maybe we take secondary with our second pick, and then we feel more comfortable because we're bringing in more competition, like another Mekhi Blackmon, where first round,
like 97, right?
Yeah.
But I for me, 97's a little late for this. I don't know if I fully trust. I think of like Allen Robinson when I think of, third round compensatory corner. I think of, guy that comes in and is like on the border between backup and starter, and I want a little bit more juice there. So put it this way, free agency has has filled enough need where nobody's keeping you in the first round anymore. Unless you're like really high on a guy, unless it's about the board, right? But there's no world where you go, God, we love this trade down idea, but we just need to take a wide receiver so bad we're taking Treadwell. Like, you're out of that. Yeah. And that allows, I think, for a much more attractive position, especially if we get some idiot QB hype train that brings some Paxton Lynch up into the top, whether that's Jackson Dart or Carson Beck, or I don't know who that guy would be. The Louisville dude. I forget his name.
Tyler Shuck. It's spelled
Tyler
like
Shuck.
It's spelled like show, but it's pronounced shuck. Don't ask. I don't know.
Okay. So yeah, I don't get it. But like those guys, and we'll talk about some of those names because the Vikings still need a backup QB, and obviously we can talk about the merits of finding that in the draft instead of free agency. But I think the world where they trade out of the first and they get the draft capital that comes along with that, and then use that to pepper in some of these competition tier needs that I feel like we need, feels better to me than just taking BPA at some super redundant position. I know you're going to talk about like wide receiver. It feels better to me than like taking a wide receiver that's going to get, a quarter of the snaps for the first couple years of his career. And then if he works out, you let Addison walk, and like that, like I get that package. But I think I prefer the one where you get a whole bunch of extra little, you get another corner, another safety, a Devy quarterback or another defensive tackle or something like that. And you can sort of split it off into multiple different things rather than putting it all into one basket and then having to justify that basket by letting someone else walk or by justifying a redundancy or like not quite getting the full value out of it. You know what I mean?
I completely understand that argument. I think there's a lot of merit to it. My big thing is if you're taking BPA, with like BPA to a point does not exist, but it also exists and they're kind of on the same plane because the way teams will stack their boards, they will stack them in mind with what they need versus just pure overall talent.
Yeah, like need influenced boards. Yeah, if you're just like super in love, if Kenneth Grant is there, you're super in love with him, slam it. You're not going to hear a complaint out of me if it's just like a guy that they love so much. But they don't have to stay.
No. And they can do pretty much anything they want. I will continue to pound the table. The one guy I'm going to beg the Vikings to pick, who I actually don't think will be there, but you never know because he did just get diagnosed with a shoulder injury and he had surgery on it a little bit ago. Alabama linebacker Jahad Campbell. Like I think he could be.
Tell me about him a little bit.
So think of the idea of Fred Warner, where Warner can do all these bonkers things and he can do a lot of really cool coverage stuff that doesn't make sense that he'd be able to do. Campbell's kind of like that, but he's not on the same level. So archetype wise, you could say, hey, like he can run the pole in Tampa too. And he can keep up with like receivers. And that's special.
Carry the 3 vertical and you're good with that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And he's 6'2", 238 and he's built like a brick house. He can play the run. I wish he was a little bit more physical when it came to like tackling, but he's not passive either. So there are a lot of really positive stuff. And he was like the fastest player at the combine, like on an overall scale when it came to like a lot of the GPS stuff. Like he was up at the top for all the linebacker and he's got some edge rush juice. Think of like, he's
Blitz,
kind of
the Jamin Davis role a little bit. Like when they kind of peppered him in.
He's kind of the inverse Dallas Turner, where Turner is an edge rusher that can drop. He's a linebacker that can rush off the edge, where that kind of flexibility would be super intriguing with the Brian Flores and next to Blake Cashman, who's really good at coverage and he's such a well-rounded player. We got lucky he only missed 3 games last year because Cashman has had a lot of injury issues throughout his career. You put a guy like Campbell next to him and you have a weapon like Ivan Pace who you can use in a little bit more of a specialty role. I think that could completely change the dynamic as defense, especially with the ability to run the pole. Like this is Josh Metellus, but an actual linebacker. And I think that is super, super fascinating. But he's probably gone by 15, which really stinks.
Yes, because he's just, well, I would never like put the house on that with an off-ball linebacker. I think that is kind of the defensive version of running back where the positional value stuff makes you just the idea of, oh, you're taking a linebacker 12th overall just gets in GM's heads. And then he falls a little bit. And I know that you and I don't see eye to eye on Ivan Pace. I think much more highly of him than you do. So I think that also, like, that's context that we should probably provide. That's part of why you would love to see him at 24 is because you don't think Ivan Pace is that good. And you would see this as upgrading on him, putting Ivan Pace into like a oops all blitz role, or, you do like 3-3-5 nickel stuff that the Vikings basically don't do. They just don't do 3-3-5 nickel because they don't like now their third best linebacker in the room is Eric Wilson. Like they're not going to be that excited about that. But if you had another person that could come in and do that, assuming that Jahad Campbell is the guy that you're talking about. It would like bump Ivan Pace down the depth chart, which I'm not sure I agree with, but we'll agree to disagree there. And instead,
it's such a fascinating argument, Luke. Then I know we got to wrap this segment up, but my big thing is I think he's really good at the things he's really good at, and I think he's worse at the things he's bad at than you do. So we're a lot. I think we're a lot closer than you're making it out to be. I just think he gets so exposed in a lot of coverage elements that to me it's a little bit worrisome. But when he's good, like that San Francisco game when he's playing the run, like he just can do some bonkers stuff.
Right, like a guy that can just like suddenly explode and like take over a whole series is never like there's a floor to that where like you can always be on the field if you're going to do that, even if you have a couple of screw ups. And he was only in his second year last year, so I'm more willing to like forgive mistakes. But I think for me, well, we'll get back to it. Okay, hold that thought. Today's Locked On Vikings episode is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in the marketing, development, design, and even more. All experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives you flexibility by connecting you with top freelance talent across multiple industries, whether it's IT, AI, web development, marketing, and so many more. Whether you need extra hands for a project or you need someone to do that like special thing that nobody on your actual staff knows how to do and you just need them once, so you just need a freelancer real quick, that is what Upwork is for. They can help you find the right talent. It's super free and simple to post your job, and within a day, you'll have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and been like, oops, there's no money? Between eating out a whole bunch or maybe ordering a bunch of delivery or entertainment or a travel thing that took forever, that took a whole bunch more money than you really realized while you were having too much fun, that is where Monarch Money helps you come in. You don't need to not do those things. You just need to know where you're at and manage your money. Monarch Money is your personal CFO, but it's much more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you aren't just managing money, you're managing wealth. It's all in one, a one-stop shop for all the different things you need for managing your spending, figuring out where you can cut back, and also tracking investments and trying to grow that money. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. Moving right along here with Forno Friday on the Locked On Vikings podcast. I can't let it go. We were on a good pace with Ivan Pace. I didn't even mean to do that. But so here's where we're at, right? Where like he's a player with ups and downs. I think we both agree there. That he's, for me, the upside's worth the downside. And part of that is I'm more willing to forgive it as a young player. But B, I think a lot of it comes with the type of player that he is just a little overzealous. And I do think that like as he grows up and, chills out a little bit, he'll find that in coverage. But I think where you and I differ is you believe that the best thing to do is to put him into like a rotational specialist role. And I don't think that his skill set has a lack of versatility. I think he just makes mistakes and we got to work on that. And so if you're giving a pitch of here's a linebacker that upgrades on Ivan Pace, let's look at that. And here's the amount of value that gives you. I think I'm like more willing to like take that and say, okay, we just like are evaluating these players on different levels versus saying that like he's not, that like he should be like a designated hitter type, that he's like got like only one job now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
I think I'm more on the former. I think I'm not going to actively try to upgrade the position. I just think that highly of Jahad Campbell. I think it makes a ton of sense, and I think you're probably more right than I am in the fact that he is a young player and he makes mistakes and he does get overzealous because he's a really aggressive guy. And especially
just takes cheese sometimes, like a lot of young linebackers will. Yeah.
He tries to point and shoot and be really aggressive. And because of his unique size, he's able to kind of utilize that leverage to get under blocks and be able to make plays that way. And there's a huge value to that, especially because even though he's small, he's still over 230 pounds, which is bigger than a lot of linebackers in the National Football League.
He's a cannonball of a guy. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah. Well, and like replace if the idea too is that he misses plays because he's young, replacing him with a rookie feels like we're going in the wrong direction on that.
Yeah, I don't disagree there, but I just think the upside of Jahad Campbell with that versatility element, because we know how much Brian Flores loves versatility. And we talked about it a few weeks ago. Versatility doesn't necessarily mean you're really good. I think he's really good. Plus, he got a lot of versatility where he can do a lot of those blitzes, and he can even have some edge rush juice where you could do some kind of unique looks where you drop like a guy like Grenard and you have Campbell be like the edge guy. And there that creates a lot of different dynamics for you. I think he'd be a huge upgrade. It's also not one I'm actively searching for, because if you have
it's because you like the guy
that.
so much. You're not like, we need a linebacker. You're like, we need this dude.
Yes, I want that guy. I don't want to replace Pace. I want that guy. And if I have to replace Pace in like a starting role to get that guy, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Sure. And I think that is a mentality that like I've been trying to encourage my audience to have. And I think that's a much healthier mentality to have than to go in and be like, well, which position are we worst at? I guess it's safety. Let's draft a safety. Who are the safeties? But rather who's your dude, and then figure out how to make him fit after the fact. So in that spirit, one other thing that I was thinking about when it comes to like how free agency has affected the draft, the Vikings signed a lot of older players. Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, both over 30, Ryan Kelly over 30, which means that I don't think it has a huge effect on those things as draft needs. I think the Vikings could 100% draft a center, not to replace Ryan Kelly, but to wait in the wings and be his successor. And I think the same thing about both of those defensive tackles, both of which have had injury issues, both of which are older. And I believe both of which have contracts that are pretty easy to get out of in the short term if you have a rookie that blows up, right? So you kind of have that lever you can pull if the guy works out, and you don't want to have too much redundancy, or you don't want to have guys stepping on each other's snap counts. So we've talked a lot about DTs, and I don't think that that's off the Vikings list, but I have talked none about centers. Can you give me some centers?
So this is a very weird center class. Some people think that there could be like 8 centers drafted, and I think that's a fair number. I'm not super high on any center because arguably the best center I don't think he's played any center at the college level, but he's played a lot of guard and tackle. North Dakota State's Gray Zabel. He did play center at the Senior Bowl. He looks relatively comfortable snapping. He's a guy
teams want to move. Okay.
Yeah. He's like 6'5", 315. But he's got 32.5-inch arms, so a lot of teams don't want him at tackle. But he's got so much experience playing in such a versatile run game. Luke, if you ever get bored and just want to watch run game film, go watch North Dakota State. They do everything. They do a lot of like man gap power. They do a lot of zone. They have some interesting pulls. Like, it's just such a fun run game to watch because they don't do option stuff. It's all pro style, and they make it work, and they just beat teams to smithereens with it. And
it does feel like they have got a lineman in the draft like every year.
Yeah, he's like Cody Mock was drafted a couple years ago by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's thriving down there. Zabel's kind of the next guy. He played left tackle this past year in North Dakota State, and he was just mauling dudes. And he's got that kind of mentality. And then when you go to the Senior Bowl, I like watching smaller school guys. I mean, NDSU is a bigger school, but they're still FCS. How do they match up against the big boys, the SEC guys, the guys who have been in like a quasi NFL nutritional
program? The IMG Academy kids. Yeah.
Yeah. How do they match up against those guys? He was arguably the best player on the Senior Bowl practices. And that tells you, okay, everything that you see on tape, that's not just because he's playing FCS dudes. He can just do it against everybody. He's really good. I don't know if he's good enough to necessarily be the guy you want at 24, but I think he's an interesting one. And then the other center guy, Marcus Mbow from Purdue. He was a tackle this year, but he's like 6'3", 305, and he's a phenomenal mover. Probably not a guy you want really a tackle because he doesn't have he's not Garrett Bradbury as far as like a strength profile, but it's not super strong where some of those speed to power guys can really get under his pads and kind of torque him. But he's got this incredible movement ability. He's a really good blocker. and teams really do want him at center. He wants to play tackle, which I completely understand. Tackle, you make significantly more money than you do at center. But
good luck with that, dude. It's not up to you, really.
I think he'd be better at kicking inside. Those are probably the two guys. Everybody likes Jared Wilson from Georgia. He ran like a 4.88 40, I think, at the combine. But he's got some similar problems to Bradbury where he just can't anchor and he gets hurt.
Yeah. So and that's going to be like the last week. Well, he's got a strength issue. Let's put him at center. I feel like every Vikings fan that's been begging for Garrett Bradbury to leave the building just like felt it in their teeth.
Let's replace Garrett Bradbury with Garrett Bradbury.
Yeah. Right. Well, enough about Tyler Linderbaum. Okay. Look at him. All right. Let's think about that, how that's been going. But it's like the exact same, like a decent extension coming up. Like, it's funny. So what else could the Vikings do in the first round that maybe would surprise us? We've debated a little bit about edge rusher in the past, but if the Vikings truly the world is their oyster and they can do anything at 24, what's the most like out there thing that they could do that would still be like a smart idea to you, but just nobody's really talking about? Like, what's the furthest out there you're willing to go and actually say that it's a possibility?
The super spicy one is tight end, because there are two tight ends.
That is a spicy one.
There are two tight ends that are first round worthy.
There's that Penn State guy is not going to be close. He's going, yeah.
He's built like TJ Hawkinson. Like that dude's
going top 15 for sure. Yeah, that's not.
But Colston Loveland, he's kind of like a move tight end. He doesn't have the best like blocking or strength profile, but it like archetype wise, not too dissimilar to an Irv Smith Jr., but he's way better. You tell me
move tight end, and I'm sorry, I can't get in there in the first round for anybody, even if tight end is a need for you.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't like. I thought that he was a huge liability on the JJ McCarthy tape that I watched from 2023. I did not like him, but with those guys, I always say like a lot changes year to year. So I usually focus way when I'm talking about like NFL stuff, I focus way more on whatever was last year. So I'll completely forget that film. But if you're telling me he still can't block, I'm out.
That's the way out there one, but I think the out there one that also could end up making sense is wide receiver, because at the end of the day, when you look at the Vikings roster needs, they do need wide receiver. They got Tim Jones, or is it Tim Smith, one of the two.
No, Tim Jones, he's supposed to be a special teamer.
Yeah.
And then
he's just a Trent Sherfield replacement. Rondale Moore is the Brandon Powell replacement. But you have question marks about is Jordan Addison really going to be a fixture of this team long term? I think he's going to be. But with all the legal issues he's had, if he has another one, how does that impact things? So you have to kind of have your purview that way. Plus,
let's have that conversation in just a second.
Sounds good.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Sorry to cut you off there, Tyler. We had a perfect segue because I think the future of Jordan Addison on the Vikings is worth discussing. I think you and I are on the same page about where I think that it would behoove the Vikings to extend him. Mm-hmm. The legal issues are annoying, and he'll probably serve a 3-game suspension. I don't necessarily think that they like prevent you from extending him. I think you can still give him a contract. It's okay. You can be mad about it. You got to talk to him about it. He's going to have his suspension. That sucks. But I don't think it sucks so bad that you just got to let this guy walk. However, if you have a guy you like as much, if you have a wide receiver version of Jahad Campbell, that you're like, wow, we just need this guy. And you bring him in and he's the guy he's supposed to be and he's good. You know, 2 years left of team control on Jordan Addison before you can let him walk if you want to, and then a 5th-year option, right? So 2 or 3 years of team control. Well, if you've got a young guy that can take over the role. You let him walk. Now, suddenly you've earned yourself 4 more years before you have to pay another wide receiver. And with the gigantic Justin Jefferson contract, like that can be a way that these things go. And as much as me personally, and I'm probably never going to fix this about myself, if I think the player is good, I want to extend the player.
Yes.
Like, very simple to me. But I also understand, well, we maybe can let Cam Bynum walk because we feel okay about Theo Jackson. And while we don't think Theo Jackson is better than Cam Bynum, we think Theo Jackson and $15 million a year is better than Cam Bynum. So we're going to let him walk. Like, I understand that logic. I just hate it.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. I like the guys, but that would be the thing. So is there a wide receiver at 24 that could be there, that is reasonable to expect to be there? Not Travis Hunter, that would make you go, maybe this guy pushes Addison out the door and we don't even 50-year option him.
So my big thing with Addison is right now, I don't think the legal issues are a problem. If he has one more, I think then it becomes a much more serious conversation.
Then it's like, how much of a head case are you, dude? Like,
but I think there's 3 guys, and this wide receiver class is really weird. Early on, Tedero McMillan.
Actually, wait, before we move on, I do want to mention if he has another like DUI, because I think if he gets a speeding ticket, I don't care. Like I couldn't care less about a speeding, even like a reckless driving. Like, it's bad, it's dangerous, you shouldn't do it. But I don't think it affects him. I don't think it affects my willingness as a football team to have him on my football team.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make fun of him for that. Like that is, you're gonna have you got to go to traffic school, but it's not my problem. When it's a DUI, for me, that's so much more toxic than just speeding. And I think there's a different layer of judgment to that. That's different to me, that it would kind of, La Reveal Magnifico, like, you really are an idiot. You're never going to stop doing this. But I just wanted to make that distinction. Anyways, continue with the names you were saying.
So there's 3 guys that I would want. One of them is Tedero McMillan from Arizona, and his draft stock was like top 10 guy. Now you're seeing a little bit of push down where he's being mocked in like 19, 22, and he could potentially be available for the Vikings. 6'5", 212, glides like just he's a beautiful glider. He's not super fast, not super explosive, but he understands how to create separation and use his body. He's also phenomenal at the catch point, knows how to box guys out. He's a true X receiver, and he's also shockingly a great yak guy. Like, he's as good of like at yak, like coming out as like guys like Jefferson and Addison who were good, but they weren't yak guys. They were more, I'm going to get open and that's going to be my calling card, but I'm not going to get a ton. He is like the game against Arizona. He played for Arizona and it gets New Mexico week 1, 10 catches over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was just cooking guys for yak. Now, some of that's New Mexico, but it was how
being the best athlete on the field. Yeah.
It was how
he did. Randy Moss was at Marshall, right? Like sometimes it is just like, oh, you just are like better. I am always so curious. So guy 6'5", you said, and he's a yak guy. So how does he do that? Is he juking and jiving with those gangly limbs, or is he just really good at like maximizing that space, almost like a tight end gets yak?
Kind of maximizing the space, but he does have the ability to put his foot in the ground and kind of change directions a little bit. Now, he's not like super twitchy, but he has the ability to kind of see the field and be able to maximize space. And I think that is...
So it would be like a responsible, your kind of X receiver, your old school possession receiver that if you give him space, he's going to go, Chris Carter's going to go upfield and catch it. But it's not going to be like Odell Beckham slant, suddenly he's going to make 3 guys miss into the house kind of guy.
No, but it'll make 3 guys miss and get you 20. Like, that's pretty good for an X. Like, he's a special mover for a guy his size. But he's probably like, his 40 times are all over the place as pro. He's probably like a 4.52 guy. Not a burner.
So you're throwing up fades and you're not really expecting like, you're not expecting to give him the ball on a jet sweep and make, making him, make 3 linebackers miss. No, you're throwing him the ball downfield. And if he gets the ball with some space, he can get upfield on you. Yeah.
The other 2 guys that I really like, Luther Burden III, he played in a weird offense at Missouri, and then they just also didn't get him the football nearly as much as they should have because he just cooks dudes. He's like 6 foot, 200 pounds. People compare him a lot to Deebo Samuel, but he's not a running back kind of guy. He doesn't have the frame for it. He doesn't have the thickness, but you get him a lot of manufactured touches, and he can cook you deep. So like yards after the catch is something the Vikings really do need because they don't really have that guy.
Right.
And I think the signing
Send a
of
prayer to Rondale Moore's knee.
the signing of Rondale Moore kind of signaled like, hey, I think they really do want to try and fix this area.
Right.
And then the third guy is Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, where he's kind of got a little.
Yeah.
I love him. He's kind of got a little bit of Cooper Kupp to him in the fact that he's kind of boring, does all the dirty work, and is just really, really good at football.
Yeah, cool. Because there's
he got overlooked by Marvin Harrison Jr., by Jeremiah Smith, by Chris Olave, by Garrett Wilson, and he's just been solidly good his entire career. He probably could have gone round 1 last year, but he wanted to win a natty, and he did.
Fair enough.
The Vikings' third receiver plays around 40 to 50% of snaps as it is. If you have the right guy in there, like say it's Egbuka, who's a really good blocker, which is the whole idea of that Sean McVay offense is having good blocking wide receivers. Maybe that guy plays even more and it becomes a more valuable position for you. Like I don't think you have to force wide receiver, but you are I feel comfortable in so many spots that if I love that guy, you give JJ McCarthy every possible ability to succeed, and having another weapon can just keep emphasizing that. And you,
like I don't feel the need to like perfectly distribute where you're like, you have your 3 receivers and your 2 tight ends and you're like, if you have a whole bunch of receivers, like receivers, one of those positions where I feel like you can never have too much, whether you have a young quarterback or, a veteran quarterback or whatever, you always want to surround your quarterback with weapons, with like whoever it is.
Yeah.
And have that group be as good as possible. What I'll say is like, I think Jalen Nailor is fine. He got a little hiccup of the dropsies in the middle of the season. I think he kind of came out of that okay at the end of the season. And, and I like Addison a lot. I think Addison's a really good receiver. So for me, first round pick, and then you tell me, yeah, he'll play 40% of the snaps, and like that's our plan for him, is not going to be good enough. If you're going to have a first round pick that like is getting low snap counts, it needs to be something like Dallas Turner, where I very much see the vision for him getting more later. So I need this guy to eventually be designated to pushing Addison out the door, not just a Jalen Nailor upgrade. And I'm with you that it's like, that's not a necessary thing, but yeah, if that guy is there. So, I like an Ohio State wideout as much as the next guy. But I think the bar has to be, oh, well, he can be like a solid contributor that'll always be in the right place and be like, to me, that's pick 97,
No, yeah. You take that guy because you think he can be an absolute difference maker long-term.
Yeah. And you need a guy that's going to break your offense open in a different way.
Yeah.
Or break your offense open in the same way Addison is, and he just lets you keep doing it cheap for a couple more years.
Yeah. If you take that guy, it's because you believe he can help you now. And if it's now 40 to 50% of the snaps, I think that's okay. But it's about the long-term picture. You don't take that guy for 2025. You take the guy for 26, 27, and 28.
Yeah.
What is that guy going to look like in those years? Because we could talk
Which means
about
maybe like a raw 40 time that goes in the 5th round could end up being the answer here.
Yeah. Like Randy Moss was not needed in 98. I mean,
no. People thought they were crazy.
Yeah. That's an extreme outlier because he ended up being a Hall of Famer. But Jake Reed was coming off like back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He was really good. And then they draft him, and it breaks the entire football world. Like, if you think you can have a difference maker where he can come in and make a real impact now and down the line, I think you are in a position to take that chance. You don't have to. You don't need to. It would be somewhat of a luxury. But if you do, it has to be because you have that core belief that he's going to be a difference maker for you long term.
Yeah, and like much like Jihad Campbell, it has to be about the guy, not about the position. We're not saying, hey, here, draft a wide receiver, here's your options. We're saying, here are 3 guys. If you think they are the dude that's going to do this, then go for it. And here's how you can justify the use of resources. As always, Tyler, thank you so much for your time. A to Z Sports, what do you got coming out?
I've got a long series on Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's draft history coming out, probably like,
oh boy,
like 8 to 12 pieces. I've got a huge database already built, and I'm just going to dive in and try and figure out what have they done, how have they grown, and what can we use that to project forward. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of work. I'm probably going to pull my long, beautiful hair out, but you know what? Somebody's got to do it, so I'm gonna. Other
Somebody's
than
got to
that,
pull your hair out, either you or your wife. All right, I will see you. Y'all can take that how you will. Okay, have a great weekend and mull that over. And as always, Skull.